Competitive Smash Ultimate stage selection is looking pretty stale. It's been cut down to only the most simple of stages. With simple stages, one gets a good look at a player's mechanics or technical skill. Though important and nice to look at, history tends to prove that judgment, prediction, adaptability, and experience matter much more. The more complex the stage played on, the fuller a picture you can see of a player's true skill, not to mention the benefits gained from training there. Therefore, now is the time for a revolution, or at least a time to visit stages whose various traits embody the spirit of Super Smash Bros. Without diverging off the competitive path. What you see will likely challenge your understanding of what's possible in Super Smash Bros. With that said, let's look at the top 7 stages I found to be worth considering and divulge the best and worst of them. First on the list will be Skyloft. The stage is relatively simple, though it has slanted platforms and it's a semi-solid stage. Also, it's slightly off-center, as in it's 10 units closer to the left blast zone. The stage width itself is 171 units, meaning it's right in between Pokemon Stadium 1 and Town and City. The side blast zones are actually the same as Town and City's, being 230, which is also about the same as Smashville's. To the ceiling, it's actually 192 units, so that's about the same as Battlefield. To the bottom blast zone is 108 units, and for perspective, Smashville is only 115, Battlefield is 140, so try to be careful if you're going off stage going for drop zone aerials and things like that. Especially you Sonic mains who like the down air off the ledge, because you will die. The platforms cover the entire stage length split into 3. It is a unique platform situation comparable to a spread out version of Battlefield, but with more freedom of movement due to the largeness and to the semi-solid nature of the stage itself. It is a decent stage for a 9-stage starter option, if we were going to use that rule set. Something else to note is that there are no stage transitions when hazards are turned off. My overall opinions of the stage are that, again, it's pretty simple. I'm surprised that it's not legal, but considering how people feel about slants and about the semi-solid nature of stages, I can understand why people were turned off or afraid of letting this be legal for much longer. I applaud Xanadu for at least trying way back in the day. The stage is pretty long for what we usually use, even longer than Town and City, but it's not too long to make it uncompetitive. Heck, it's not even as long as Stadium 1, so if you're complaining about this stage's length, you better be saying ban Stadium as well. But anyways, it's likely you would want to ban this stage if you were in the counterpick phase as a slow character, or immobile. Still, overall, I like the stage, and I can definitely see it being legalized, and I would like it to be, if nothing else, as a counterpick. The second stage I'll discuss is Halberd. This stage has an awesome big, small, and semi-solid solid dichotomy going on, with its different transitions of flying and landing. The stage brings both freedom and familiarity, due to its changing nature. Some key features to note are that its slants on the flying part are a little tamer than those on Yoshi's Island. The central platform is 20 units longer than Smashville's and only slightly, or 3 units, longer than the platform on Yoshi's Island. The stage width goes from being slightly shorter than Pokemon Stadium 2 when it's on the landed portion, or slightly longer than Smashville during the flying portion. The blast zone width is Smashville and Town and City like, being plus or minus 230 from the center. However, it is worth noting that the ledge to blast zone can be scary once it's on the longer portion. The stage to ceiling blast zone actually switches based on about 4 different transitions. The first of these 4 transitions is the beginning portion, which never does appear again, but that one, the ceiling, is a staggering 208 units. So you won't be dying off the ceiling unless, Smash 4 or Bayonetta things happen again. But anyways, this beginning portion is a walk-off, so if you're not careful, you could get cheesed. After that portion, once the ship takes off, you'll be in the flying portion, which the ceiling seems to be somewhere between 185 to 190 units from the lower part of the stage, and about 178-ish units when you're on the upper part. So overall, it goes from being about FD to a little higher than FD. Pretty tame. The third transition is the landed part, which, once you're on the Halberd, it's just one big flat area. The ceiling there actually gets shorter, somewhere in the 170s range. Afterwards, this last transition is very deceptive because it's disguised as the flying portion again. It takes place after you take off from that landed portion, but right before you hear the background noise of the Halberd actually blasting off into the distance. In this transition, though you are flying in the air, it seems as though you are actually temporarily keeping the blast zones that you had while landed, which were shorter than normal if you recall. Therefore, that makes the ceiling hover between 162-ish and 157-ish, whether you're on the lower or upper part of the stage. That's pretty scary to think about, but this transition doesn't last for very long. You could almost think of it as if you were on the Pokemon Stadium 1 platform while fighting, except extended a lot longer. Either way, once that sound goes off in the background, you'll know that the stage is back to being the standard flying blast zone, which again were pretty standard. Other things to note are that there are some interesting potential interactions that can happen while taking off and landing. It's very punishing to those unprepared. And just so you know, when hazards are turned off, there are no claws or bombs or lasers that are going to attack you. My overall thoughts on the stage? It's definitely one of my favorite stages to play on in general. I very much enjoy the changing nature of the stage, allowing for varying playstyles and a lot of adaptation in changing conditions. It keeps things pretty fresh. I would love to see the stage introduced into our tournaments, most likely as a counterpick stage. Third on this list is Woohoo Island. It's a very long semi-solid stage with upwardly curving ledges, creating some interesting ledge or ledge trap options. The width itself is 209 units, meaning it's very easy to create space. Honestly, it may be a little problematic in that regard. The platform is 6 units longer than Smashville's, so almost the same thing. As for the blast zone sides, they are a standard plus or minus 240. However, because the stage is so long and the ledge so close to the blast zone, that makes it a pretty scary 135 units, similar to Halberd. Stage to ceiling is 199 units, platform to ceiling being 182. That's taller than anything we've had legal thus far. And even if you were standing on the platform, you'll still live slightly longer off the top than you would on Final Destination and stages with similar ceilings. There are no stage transitions when hazards are turned off, so what you see is what you get. My thoughts on it? Well, as I said before, the stage is incredibly long. Because of its length, I do think that certain matchups may become incredibly polarizing, based on a character's ability to run away. Sonic and other characters like me, Gunner, and things like that, I can see them performing extremely well on this stage, but that doesn't necessarily make it a guaranteed win. Because it's pretty flat and there's not many places to go, space can still be a factor in allowing a character to close the distance and knock them out of the stage. Especially with the fact that being closer to the ledge makes you that much closer to losing your stock. So it is risky running away and putting yourself closer to the blast zone, but if you do it right, you could possibly give somebody the runaround. I probably wouldn't recommend the stage, but it is still worth considering. That's my feelings on the stage. Number 4 here is Frigate Orpheon. This stage is asymmetric and partially semi-solid, and has a moving platform, and it has an occasional wall, plus a weird camera, and yet it feels fine anyway. This stage is, as I call it, the biggest small stage, being 142 to 148 units with the platform, and the blast zones are pretty middling, I'd say, being a 485 total width. The stage to ceiling is 184 units, so it's essentially right in the middle of Final Destination's 180 and Smashville's 190, for perspective. Because of the moving platform on the right, it does create a temporary wall, which also means temporary combos and wall tech. The temporary nature of it is what keeps it fair. You will remember Lalat when you barely miss the ledge as it rises away from you. But at least there's 2 ledges over there, granting recovery mix-ups. Something to take note is that without hazards, the stage will not flip. My thoughts on this stage are that it's pretty unique and can allow different types of strategies and thinking to take place. I think the layout is pretty cool, and I like the fact that the stage is small but the blast zones are just about average. And considering it's the largest stage you could get that's also smaller than Battlefield, you might feel a little less counterpicked going here than on a different small stage, just because you'll have slightly more room. I like the stage and definitely want to see it legalized, most likely as a counterpick stage. Fifth is Warioware Incorporated. Yep, here we go again, right? For the side blast zones, it's only 180 units from the center, meaning 360 in total, and the stage width is only 116 units. Put nicely, I'd say the stage is horizontally challenged. To the bottom blast zone, it's only 106 units as well, so be careful with your drop zone aerials. However, for the ceiling, it's actually 198 units, or 149 from the very top platform, so you likely won't be losing your stocks off the ceiling. The stage also has walls, which you can use to wall jump, help your recovery, things like that. But still, this stage likely wins the award for most stress-inducing stage ever used in Ultimate. But hey, at least with hazards turned off, there's no minigames, right? Well anyways, my thoughts on the stage? If you remember what I said in the other video on the topic, you would know I'm not necessarily against small blast zones. When it comes to Warioware, you probably won't get any smaller than this, but just because it's small doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just makes it different and surprising if you're not ready for it. Still, this stage doesn't necessarily add too much to gameplay, besides its unique type of platforms that rise into the ceiling and the fact that there's 4 of them. The stage is really tiny though, and can feel suffocating. It's still worth looking at and thinking about, however I don't see as much uniqueness coming from this stage. In truth, it is pretty simple, just small. Number 6 is Castle Siege. Yeah, here we go again, part 2. The blast zone sides are 210 from the center, meaning 420 in total. And for stage to ceiling, it's 170 or 180 depending on whether you're on the lower or upper part of the stage. The stage width itself is 131 units. So from that you can tell the stage is just small all around in just about every facet. What's unique about it is that slant in the middle, which allows for certain positional tactics to flourish. Whether it be some type of king of the hill, or how certain projectiles may have differing efficiencies depending on the slant. I can think of grenades bouncing off the ledge, I can think of lasers being blocked, I can think of Palatin's explosion within the stage. Maybe I don't need to mention all that. Occasionally there's certain background elements that may blind the players, generally during the recovery phase, like a flaming rock passing across the screen if you're recovering near the left side, or while recovering on the right side having the castle itself in the background cover the screen. However, when they do appear, it's likely that you are already buffering your next action, so it wouldn't directly affect what you're doing. Only what could happen afterwards, because neither of you might know what's going to happen next. Though players with more experience probably can guess what's going to happen anyway. I've never seen anything major happen because of this, mainly because it's only a split second. Either way, it's worth noting and remembering. Also worth noting is that there are no stage transitions when hazards are turned off, so this is the only part of the stage you'll get to play on. My overall thoughts on the stage are that, as the stage is small, it's likely to catch people off guard with how quickly they could lose their stock. The slant in the middle changes things up a bit, and even the platforms themselves change their heights accordingly. I think for what it's worth that the stage isn't bad. It is definitely smaller than most stages, and it'll feel that way, but I don't think it's nearly as frightening as certain other offenders, and I can see its return without too much worry. It's still pretty close to what we usually use, in the fact that it's completely solid, has walls. It's not all that far out there. In terms of what we have, I think it's okay. However, there is the risk of its size being too polarizing, so I could also see it being left out right now too. I suppose I'll leave it as a maybe right now. The final, 7th stage is Brinstar. Small, bumpy, semi-solid, asymmetrical, Brinstar is the culmination of all that we fear. The stage width is approximately that of Warioware's. However, it does increase when you include the platforms, making it to about the same as Yoshi's Story's stage to platform width, being about 145 units. These platforms contribute to the stage feeling less suffocating than stages like WarioWare and Castle Siege. Also, you get a lot more freedom of movement with this stage because of its semi-solid nature. However, the stage itself has many slants, curves, and bumps, which makes it tricky to move around freely on the ground. This tends to influence players to play more aerial-centric, if they're uncomfortable being on the floor. Stage to ceiling is 185 units, which is right in the middle of things. However, the blast zone sides in total are 380, or 190 from the center. That makes this stage almost as small as WarioWare. Something else to point out is that there is a secret sort of wall in that middle bulge, which you can sometimes tech or tech jump off of when you're sent flying into it, but it appears to only be from the right side. One other important thing to note is that the stage is indestructible and acid-free when hazards are turned off. My thoughts on the stage? It's surprisingly fun to play on. The side blast zones can help you get early KOs, but because you're not as restricted as you would be on a solid stage, you tend to have a lot more chances to outplay and evade the opponent, giving you a lot more survivability than you might expect. I'd say this is a perfect example of a small stage done right. The slants and bumps do create odd situations, but that's exactly the kind of thing that shows off a player's experience. Also to note is that though the stage is technically a tri-plat, you probably won't feel that way at all when you're playing on it, similar to how you might forget that Lilat is a tri-plat. At the end of the day, this stage ended up becoming one of my favorites to play on as well. I sincerely look forward to this stage being legalized, likely in counterpick status. Now that we've finished the top 7, I feel we should round it out with a few more honorable mentions. First, and most important, is Yggdrasil's Altar, which actually would have been on this list. However, I've heard but not confirmed that copyrighted music may be an issue. The layout is also randomized, similar to Gamer and Arena Ferox, but none of the layouts are problematic, so I wouldn't say that's a good argument. Besides, the stage is actually used in some places, so I didn't feel too bad leaving it out of this list. Other stages left out include Mementos for similar reasons in the music possibility, but also because Mementos is really big and has the potential for a circle camping with how tall that middle platform is. I'm not 100% sure that's possible, but I can definitely see it happening. Mushroom Kingdom U is another stage that I found to be too big for my liking. It's actually the biggest stage I've seen people try to argue legality for. I just don't see it being a good idea to allow characters with high aerial mobility to just jump around from platform to platform, from ledge to ledge. It just seems a little too much. I also feel I should mention that Duck Hunt was immediately out because of how tall that tree is. With hazards off, there isn't even a dog that appears to help you get up there anymore, so you always need at least 2 jumps to get up there. If not, you're up B as well. It's just incredibly polarizing, easy to camp, and easy to run away with. The last stage I feel I should mention is Prison Tower, which may seem similar to Halberd. However, certain transformations create islands of sorts that usually aren't good. It reminds me of hazards on Pokemon Stadium 1, which back in the day when used you would have 30 seconds plus of players just sitting and waiting on the other side of a giant wall or something like that. I'd say these islands would create similar 30-40 second long, maybe 60 seconds depending on how long those transformations last. And that's just a little bit too long for my liking. The stage also has a lot of Final Destination transformations, but I won't really get into that. The islands were enough for me. Well, that's that. I'd like to give some special thanks to the creators of the websites I used. Jet Williams for the Tournameta.com stage comparison tool, and for Ruben or Rubendoll for that very useful website. I would also like to really thank my good friends and allies willing to embark on this crazy journey playtesting these stages with me, and providing helpful feedback. That includes Sonics, Blazing Pasta, Summer Haze, Sauce, Ronan X, and my brother Uno. I'd also like to thank all the guys in PG Stats Smash Ultimate Stage Discord who low-key got me triggered enough to finally decide to start on this project, so I could forever lay out my arguments and not need to repeat myself. I'd also like to thank all of you who subscribed and commented on my videos, reminding me that you do care to see my content and hear my thoughts. Hopefully you don't hate me now for my opinions. Anyways, thank you so much. If you'd like, maybe I'll continue making content. I did have a Sonic themed video that I wanted to make, but that's for another day. At any rate, thanks again. I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a nice day. Peace.